We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Friday, moving through the week. Tons of shit happening. Every day, something crazy seems to happen. It's weird. Conspiracy theories. Donald Trump says something fucking dumb every day. Makes it easy to do the show, to be perfectly honest with you. There's always something to talk about. I am looking forward to the time when things calm down a bit. We don't have to deal with some of this crazy and sometimes scary shit. But at least things are headed the right direction. I know people get weirded out or scared about different things. Swear to God, people are looking for things to worry about. I've got somebody who sends me a conspiracy theory every day and says, "Is this true?" No, it's not true, motherfucker. Read the goddamn thing and look where it comes from. It comes from a publication with the word conspiracy in it. No, it's not true. People have to stop being afraid. People have to trust in what's right and what's good and that we're headed the right direction. Read the room. Take a look at what's going on. Things are going well. Quit freaking out. Doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do you any good. It's a waste of time and energy. And it's of no help to the cause. Fucking relax. Just fucking relax. All right, we've got some emails. I've got a story I wanted to tell you about before we get to the email, only because it makes me laugh. And it's so stupid. You know, Donald Trump has a debate coming up with Joe Biden. Donald Trump asked for this debate. He wanted the debate. Then Joe said, sure, we'll do it. Set up some rules. And Donald Trump, not thinking, accepted those rules. And he's set to debate on June 27th. We're talking less than 2 weeks away. And as we've talked about on the show, I'm getting the sense that maybe the Republicans and maybe Donald Trump are having second thoughts about showing up at that debate, mainly because Donald Trump will get his ass kicked. But he's got a problem. If he shows up, Donald Trump will probably if Donald Trump shows up, Joe Biden will probably decimate him. If he doesn't show up, people are going to refer to him as a pussy ass bitch, which would be the worst of things to happen to Donald Trump. So he's got to figure something out. And I have to give Donald Trump credit. I'll give him a little credit. He's always saying something crazy, but somehow, some way, he comes out of his ass with something I never expected. I never expected. Because I'm sure he's feeling like he's in a tight position, that he's trapped. He doesn't want to do the debate, but he knows he has to do the debate, that this isn't going to go well for him either way he goes. So here's the theory, the idea that Donald Trump had. And he talked about this on a right-wing news outlet, OAN or something of that akin, to that akin. Anyway, this is the story. Former President Donald Trump claimed that he might intentionally lose the first presidential debate of 2024 in effort to keep President Joe Biden on the Democratic ticket. Wow, that's a good one. What he's likening it to is like a professional prize fight where you have one big strong guy like Donald Trump and you have a weak person and you want to put on a good show and don't want to knock him out in the first round. So you just kind of carry him for 15 rounds to put on that show. Apparently that's what Donald Trump wants us to believe in this upcoming debate. Nice fucking try. Now, during an interview that aired Thursday on Real America's Voice, Trump sought to lower expectations for his debate performance. He argued that Biden should take a drug test before the event. Well, that would be fine, Donald, but then so should you. And you've already demurred from a drug test that was mandatory prior to talking to the probation officer. He's convinced that Joe Biden's on some kind of drug because they keep saying he's sleepy, that he can't complete a sentence, but then the State of the Union comes out and then this thing in D-Day, and he looks so good. It couldn't possibly be that Joe Biden is in fine shape and that everything you're saying is a lie, so you have to suggest that he's on drugs. Well, I'm sure Joe Biden could take the drug test and pass it. Question is, why wouldn't you take the drug test? And if Joe Biden has to take a drug test, well, certainly do you. Anyway, he goes on, Donald Trump goes on to say they're going to feed him a lot of stuff and we should do a drug test, he demanded. I'd love to do a drug test beforehand. Really? Because you didn't want to do it just 2 days ago. Now you're all ready for a drug test? What, do you think you can clean your system out that quickly? I don't know, Don. I don't think Dr. What's his name? Ronnie Jackson. I don't think he's going to give you the best advice. Anyway, it continues going on. If he makes it through, no matter what, no matter how bad he is, they'll say he's great. No, that's what the Trumplafucks will do with you. No matter how bad you get your ass whooped, they'll run around saying you did great. But the vast majority of the people will see it. They have common sense and logic, and they will see that you got absolutely destroyed. Goes on to say, well, interesting. They've done polling and I do better against almost everybody, he opined. And so they don't want to take him off. It depends. Maybe I'm better off losing the debate, Trump added. I'll make sure he stays. I'll lose the debate on purpose. Maybe I'll do something like that. And you can see exactly what he's doing. This is what he always does. He makes these big claims that I will beat him and I'll do this. But then when he ends up being put in a situation where he's going to have to back up what he says, now he has to qualify it in some way so that when he's wrong, he can say, well, see, I knew all along. I just let him win. I just let him win. That's well and good. You are going to lose, Donnie Trump, but the fact of the matter is it's more than that. You're going to look confused and you're going to look dumb. And the idea that you might be suggesting that you're playing dumb, well, it's going to be all too familiar. This is going to be classic Donald Trump. So you can say you're acting dumb, but we all know what the facts are. So I'm hoping this is a good sign. I'm hoping that, in fact, he will show up to the debate because that will be entertaining as a motherfucker because Joe Biden will decimate him. There's no question about it. Maybe 2 years ago, I would have said it's a little different. Maybe if they didn't have the rules that they have set up now where Donald Trump could just speak over Joe Biden, maybe I'd give him a fighting chance. But with the rules set the way they are and the condition Donald Trump appears to be in at this point, wow, it's not even going to be close. I mean, we're going to be going off on topics like Hannibal Lecter and sharks and batteries underwater. It's going to get crazy up in there, and people are going to see who he really is. And like I was saying to Old Soul yesterday, by the way, thanks to her for showing up on the show yesterday. If you watch Fox News, you don't get all the information that, say, MSNBC gives. So there are a lot of negative things about Donald Trump that people who watch Fox News never, ever hear. This will be a much different situation. If their Lord and Savior is on national television debating the evil Joe Biden, they'll all be watching. And when they are watching, they are going to learn some shit that they never knew before. And it's going to be impossible to divert or spin it. Oh, sure, they'll try, but it won't work. The obvious will be there. Donald Trump has some cognizant difficulties, and they will be apparent in that debate. So hopefully he does show up. Make all the excuses you want, motherfucker. You go there, you're going to get your ass kicked. I just wonder if his hangers on and his handlers aren't going to try to talk him out of going. That would be the smart thing to do. But let's be honest, everything Donald Trump has done over the past 8 years, very little of it has been smart. All right, this next one was a comment. The first email isn't an email. It's a comment from the podcast page. It comes from Gussie. Gussie says, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett would make a ferocious United States Attorney General. Do you think Merrick Garland would do better in the Supreme Court, or should we just fire him? Well, you can't just transfer him to the Supreme Court, there's got to be an opening. He's got to be appointed, and he's got to be approved by Congress. I don't know. Would he be a better Supreme Court justice? Yeah, probably, mainly because he hasn't been a very good attorney general. I think when we get past the election, you do have to fire him and get somebody in there to do the job better. Maybe down the road, if there's an opening on the Supreme Court, maybe Joe Biden wants to nominate him and put him there. And if he was on the Supreme Court, I don't have a problem with that. I certainly would prefer to see him as opposed to Clarence Thomas or Sammy Alito. So would he be better? Well, he couldn't be worse than what he's been in terms of the attorney general's job. So, yeah, probably better. He's a very smart jurist, and he would probably fit in pretty well there. All right. The next email, Rational Boomer. It's been a while since I've written. In the last few weeks, I listened to the podcast and your Not a Podcast podcasts. I still agree with you that Trump will not win in the fall. I did hear you say that very thing this morning 3 times, and I think that it is dangerous to underestimate Trump's craziness and disregard of everything except himself. The closer to the election he gets, the more reckless he will become. I am certain that he's planning and even carrying out unethical and even worse ways to give himself advantages. This morning, I read about the many ways the red states are trying to clean out voter registration polls, planning all chosen members on voter registration boards, including paid-off Democrats, and many other methods to eliminate probable Biden voters. I'm also certain that convicted felon Trump is planning October surprises. He could be working with Xi Jinping and Putin to create trouble for Biden. Both would love to have Trump as our president again, and both could do things to shake up our election. Xi could bomb Taiwan, as they have been working on this for years. Putin could do limited or not so limited nuclear strikes on areas of Ukraine, as he seems to be getting more and more concerned and crazy. Anything could happen. Even if convicted, felon Trump isn't the candidate. Any Republican winning the election could trigger American fascism and possibly implementing Project 2025. We know that the Heritage Foundation and several other very powerful billionaires are behind their movement towards wanting dictatorship in the U.S. The far right are winning power in many other countries in the world. I'm not trying to scare people into voting for or against certain candidates. I'm only saying that we cannot get too complacent so that we all think that we know the future. We should be educating people on all of the possible issues in this election. Please go easy on me with your response. Sincerely, Max. Answer to your last question, no. Because I'll tell you what the problem here is. You're like everybody else who's been with Donald Trump the last 8 years. You give him far too much credit for intelligence and strategy and all that stuff. What the fuck have we been seeing for the last 4 years? This guy has failed at every turn. The Republicans have tried to do things. They failed at every turn. If you want to be fearful about what's going on, that's cool for you, but that's not how I do business. I see what's going on. I see the facts. I see the data. There is only one way to look at it in my mind, is that Donald Trump can win. Oh, what if they cheat? Well, they cheated in 2020. What happened? They failed. Donald Trump has tried every move in the world to not get convicted, but he got convicted. You give him too much credit. Do you understand, Max, that the reason Donald Trump has been able to do what he's done is because he's been a bully? He's gotten people's faces. He's threatened them. And when those people step back and become scared, that's when he beats you. If that's the game you want to play, I don't want to be standing next to you, because that's not the way to handle somebody like this. What's going on all around the country? You're one of these people, Max, that go around looking for things to worry about, and you ignore the positive things. You're so sure the second shoe is going to drop, and then you spend your time looking at situations and try to figure out how you're going to lose. When I look at shit, I look at how I'm going to win and I'm going to figure out how I'm going to win. And when I look at what's going on now, I see the Republicans dropping in support, losing at every turn. Donald Trump doesn't have the money he used to have. He's been convicted of 34 felonies. Um, New York and E. Jean Carroll have taken most of his money and tied that shit up. You can tell me all the things Republicans are doing that are so scary, but you're disregarding all the positives with the Democrats and all the negatives with the Republicans. The thing about it is I'm sure, I'm sure Donald Trump cannot win. Not because I'm a psychic, not because I'm an ego driven guy who just has to be right, because of the facts. Look at the facts. Don't tell me about theories. Don't tell me about conspiracy theories. Don't tell me about bullshit that makes you fearful. I don't care what makes you fearful. I'm telling you, look at the facts. Don't be afraid. Nothing has ever been gained by being fearful. It makes you weaker and you end up losing. Donald Trump has spent his whole life putting fear into people's minds. And that's how he wins. If you can't grasp that, then please don't stand next to me because we're going to run this motherfucker over. He's going to go to jail ultimately. Things are not going well for the Republicans. In fact, they're going fucking horribly. Recognize that. And instead of worrying about all the things, oh, that could go wrong, you know what? I only look at the things that can go right. And you know what? The vast majority of the time, that's how they go. I'm a firm believer in then what you think, what you say, and what you focus on is what you get. You want to focus on fear, you do that, but I don't want any fucking part of it. All right. Hope that wasn't too rough on you, Max. And no hard feelings, but I think it's important when people come to me and say, I think you're wrong because you're not scared enough. You're right, motherfucker. I'm not scared enough. I don't get scared because I know what the truth is and I know what the facts are. You want to live your life scared? You go ahead and do it. Not me. Not doing it. All right. The next one says, Mike, hello. I really appreciate what you have to offer. I'm, however, confused as to why you think DJT will not win in the upcoming election. Here we go again. Mike, this guy is very cunning. No, he's not. He's dumb as fuck. He and his followers are really good at spreading misinformation. Yeah, they've been doing it since the beginning of time. I do not underestimate their ability to cause damage during the upcoming election, like they did in 2020 and they lost. With the Russians in his back pocket, the outcome does not look good for us. Mike, by the way, Biden may not even run for office. Please, motherfucker, do not come to me with conspiracy theories. Unless Joe Biden keels over, he's going to be the candidate. Trump and his allies are really attacking his mental status without mercy. Mike, it does not look good. Keep up the good work you are doing, Charles. Well, Charles, you and Max should form a little a little whining bee and worry about all the troubles. Everything you just said there was untrue. Donald Trump is not cunning. The Russians may want Donald Trump to win, but Donald Trump offers them nothing. Russia only has an interest in Donald Trump if he has money, if he has authority, if he has power. He has none of those things. They're going to get involved in the election like they did in 2020. But if you remember, the Democrats fucking won in spite of that. Oh, the Republicans are really good at spreading information. Yeah, no shit. They've been doing it for a long time. But now, if you watch what they're doing, the shit they're doing is starting to get laughed at because it's so ridiculous. We don't have to spread information that's not true. All we have to say is Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felony charges, and that's the fucking truth. Charles and Max, this is nothing against you, but I get very frustrated with people that want to sit in the corner and be afraid. Fuck that. Donald Trump is not going to win. Over the next 2 to 3 years, Donald Trump will implode. He will fall from grace from even the MAGA fucks. He will have no money. He will probably be in jail. The fact that you have the audacity to still be afraid of this guy just tells me that this is why we have problems with Donald Trump. The moment somebody stands up to Donald Trump, he falls down. But for all these years, people have backed off. Oh, no, he talks too loud. He's got $1 billion. Somebody needed to slap the taste out of his mouth decades ago, and then we wouldn't have to be dealing with Donald Trump. The misinformation by the Republicans is something you're gullible to. They're saying they're powerful, and you're buying that. And that annoys me. That really fucking annoys me, to be honest with you, because that's a loser mentality. And again, I'm not talking about you personally. I'm just talking about a lot of people who think like you do. And it doesn't work. It hasn't worked for the last 8 years. It hasn't worked for decades. So when something you do doesn't work, I got an idea. Try something different. Take a look at the facts. What's really true? I said Donald Trump would not win in 2020. That's what happened. I said there would be no red wave in 2022. That's what happened. In spite of all the things you're afraid about with the Republicans, I was right. And it's not because I'm incredibly smart or some kind of psychic. It's because I didn't let that fear bullshit affect me. I looked at the facts, and the facts told me what will happen. Same goes for 2024. All right. Somebody give me a fucking lifeline here. Anyway, this next one comes from Cynthia. She writes, thought this would be interesting about Clarence Thomas. Yeah, this is a story I heard. She sent me a link for a story, and I'm not going to read the story, but I'll give you the information basically and give you an idea of what kind of piece of shit that Clarence Thomas is. You remember when he was trying to support all this grifting he has done, and he was trying to make himself out to look good. And he talked about how he and his wife took a 6-year-old boy in and raised him like a son. Oh, you're such good people. Well, that boy is about 32 years old now, and he comes out with something additional to the story. And that is that apparently, while they did take care of him, travel all over the world, he experienced a lot of privilege while he was with him. But somehow, when he was 16 years old, Jenny and Clarence pretty much abandoned him, sent him out to the world at 16 years old. How do you figure he fared in that situation? Well, as he's making these comments, he's currently awaiting trial for gun and drug charges, and he may very well be convicted and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Yeah, Clarence and Jenny, you're wonderful fucking people. You left a little kid hang to dry, and it didn't work out, did it? Did it, Clarence? All right. Next one comes from somebody. I'll try to pronounce this properly. It's UJ. Uj. Hi, Mike. Love the podcast. I kept a journal of my political views for the past 4 years. I would like to send you some excerpts from some PPT slides that highlighted NPD and dementia, hoping that may help make more informed decisions this November. How can I send you those attachments? I gave him my email, and he sent them to me, and I think he's coming up here. The second email is coming up here in a minute. All right, the next one says, hi, Boomer. So which is it? Dipshits. Is Sleepy Brandon so demented that he does not know what day it is? Or is he such a mastermind that he engineered a years-long persecution of dear leader from the deck of his beach house in Delaware? That's an excellent question. He says, pick one inane fantasy and stick with it. This is a quote from Jeff Tiderich. I don't know if you follow him or not, but I think you two are kindred spirits. You would love his stuff. Check him out. I have checked him out. I'm familiar with who he is, and you're right. He's a solid guy. Anyway, back to my area in South Jersey. There is a Trump merch store down the street from me. Every time I pass by, I flick the bird at it. This community is supposedly family oriented. How do they get away with flying a Let's Go Brandon flag? My neighbor's son, name is Brandon. He is 8. My neighbor told me that when they passed the store, little Brandon yelled out, "Look, Mom, the flag is for me." Really? The party of family values? I call bullshit. The other sign that is fake news is the one that claims this is Trump and Van Drew country. What a total shit sign. I seriously take offense to it. Do you know about Jeff Van Drew? He was a Democrat and switched parties for Trump. If there ever was an ass kisser, it's him. Don't get me started on all the windmill debates and blocking that our second district douchebag representatives has strongly been on the side of oil and gas industries to stop any progress. He's trying to cozy up to Trump, but is definitely the forgotten stepchild. It's just stupid, for lack of a better word. Please continue to be best. Ha ha ha. Just kidding. You're the best. Thanks from a fellow rational boomer, Blue Dot in South Jersey, Liz. Well, thank you, Liz. I appreciate it. All right. The next one says, "Hi, Boomer. That was a tough soul show, old soul, yesterday." Yeah, she had a tragic story that she told when we began the show. That story is so enraging. I know VP Harris is out talking about this stuff, but I'm so frustrated that more people don't know the practical real life strategies unfolding in the red states. I was buoyed by what looks like strong overperformance by Dems in the Ohio primary following the trend of every election since 2016. That's a state that's interesting to watch. To me, Ohio is a flatter, crazier Pennsylvania, but those are two very important states in the election. I don't know enough to analyze how things look at the swing state level, and frankly, I probably avoid learning more. And probably the permutations are too many to meaningfully assess at this point. I do believe Biden will win, and Trump's real time deterioration is glorious in following what you predicted all along. But I tend to think in terms of national voter cohorts. If it was just white males, fuck us all. Trump would win in 2024 if it was just up to us. I'm sorry, world. Don't disagree with you there. I think white females, and particularly the suburban soccer moms, is key. And maybe it's unfair, but while writing off white males as a lost cause, we look to the women to save us, much like in life. Not only white women, but if you remember from 2020, um, Black women were a big part of why the Democrats won. And we appreciate all their efforts. And I think they'll play a big role along with young people in this upcoming election. He goes on to say, and they look all compassionate and friendly in their Honda minivans, and so we take some comfort. But I've got a longtime, very close black female friend. She's led a hard scrabble fight to survive urban life, and we talk about everything. And in her words, if you're counting on white women to do the right thing, you are about to be sadly mistaken. Don't know that I agree with that. If you're worried about doing the right thing for the country, I still don't know that I agree with you, but you got to remember it's more than that this time. Whether you like the vast majority of white women and how they vote, you got to remember we've got Roe v. Wade in this situation. It's not just about what affects the country, what affects them, how it takes a constitutional right away from them. That's going to be a far different thing than what happened in 2020. You kind of saw the blowback in 2022 when everybody thought it was going to be a red wave. It's why I wish these stories that Soul tells were being shouted from the rooftops. I know what effect they had on me. I have to think that they would absolutely pull on the hearts and votes of many of the mothers out there. Best, Garage Door Jeff. Well, that's what we try to do when we tell these stories. We're not trying to depress you or upset you or anything like that, but these are stories that need to be told. These are stories the media doesn't tell. Real people are in real danger, suffering real trauma, and even real death. That has to be known. And we do need to shout it from the rooftops. I tell you, you tell more people, they tell more people. That's how this is all kind of worked, this rational boomer thing. That was Garage Door Jeff, of course. And of course, he has a PS. PS, that's so funny. Trump could only honestly scare up 2 or 3,000 people in Vegas. Hell, I think you could do a double billing of Molly Hatchet and what remains of Foghat and pull more than that. I agree. I agree. And not have to pay anybody to show up. Anyhow, tell you what, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. I just want to say something about those emailers in the first half, those two, Max and the other gentleman. People are going to write to me and send me emails. You were too mean to them. You were too harsh to them. And let me explain something. I don't have any personal feelings about those emailers because I don't know them. I appreciate the fact that they listen, and I love all the listeners, whether they agree with me or they don't agree with me. You don't have to agree with me. My problem with those comments has nothing to do with them personally. My problem is that those attitudes and those fears are what put us where we are today. It put us where we are today. And if you continue with that attitude and that mentality, we are going to stay where we are. And that's what kind of angers me. We have an opportunity here. These motherfuckers are on the run. We have an opportunity to extricate ourselves from the shit we're in now because of these people and because people cowed to them. So when I hear something like that, it does anger me because I'm seeing an opportunity to pull out of this and do what we need to do and use some common sense. And when somebody throws this at me and says, oh, we should be scared of this, Project 2025 this, Project 2025 that, or they're cunning. They're not fucking cunning. Have you seen their hearings? Have you seen the bullshit they're trying to pull? They're not cunning. They're ignorant. They're children. I'm just saying, those emailers, I'm not mad at the emailers. I'm mad at the attitude because this is what we've been doing for fucking 8 years and even beyond that. If you want to stay where you are, well, then keep that fucking attitude. If you want to get out from under it and get on the right track, well, then you got to get the right fucking mindset. I'm just saying. All right. Next one says, Mike, you read an email from me a while back referring to suggestions on how Biden should play the patriotism card more boldly, which he has been doing with honesty and empathy, but firmness. I'm an American native born citizen that have lived in London for nearly 30 years where I work, but return 3 times a year to the US where my wife and I still have modest homes in Massachusetts and California where our kids live. I witnessed firsthand social media tricks played by Russia, intimidating Brits with immigration fears and instigating the 51% to 49% vote to snub the European Union in June of 2016. Putin then focused on disrupting USA voter sentiment by backing Trump's initial election bid 5 months later. The attached is a TikTok US election story just out today from Tortoise Media. Think ProPublica for England. You're very smart to include TikTok in your communication strategy, and I urge increasing your TikTok presence. Well, I do 4 to 10 TikToks a day and have for 4 years, and I have 337,000 followers. I'm doing the best I can, man. I don't know how to make it bigger than that for me. There are people that have more followers, of course, but they have more talent than I do. For one thing, you get it and understand millennials and Gen Zs better than MSNBC. Keep up the spirit of us paranoids. It's not that we hate Trump, although we all can't stand him. It's that we fear the USA could be torn apart to a horrific extent if he becomes our Putin. Not going to happen. Just not going to happen. Europe is terrified at the thought of Trump or any MAGA candidate taking over and subjugating the rule of law and the U.S. Constitution and U.S. foreign policy to collude with despots. And the UK is still crippled with divisiveness and economic chaos resulting from Brexit. Below, I pasted from today's SenseMaker a newsletter from Tortoise, which is worth subscribing to. Chris. Yeah, I'll look at it, Chris. I appreciate that. You notice something? You talk about Putin and you talk about Trump. You know what the common thread between these two fucking clowns is? It's what I said before. It's fear. They strike fear in people, whether it be in the United States or in England. And for whatever reason, people in the United States and England have fed into that fear and took their advice. Be afraid of us because we're powerful. Let me explain something to Putin. What does Putin have? Putin allegedly has a lot of nuclear weapons, but that's all he has. The economy is falling apart. I heard a story yesterday that they're in some deep economic troubles. They're in a war with Ukraine that they should have won in 3 days, but they're still at it a year and a half, going on 2 years later. They're not strong. Putin's not strong. The only reason you think Putin's strong is because Putin told you he was strong. And the same thing with Donald Trump and the Republicans. I hear this every day from people. They'll come to me and say, "Did you hear this?" I go, "Where did you get that from?" And they don't know. It's just out there in the ether and they suck it in and say it must be true. But you have to understand, these are Republicans. These are Russians or Putin putting this in the narrative, spinning it around until it hits your head and somehow you believe it's true. It's like what I said about Donald Trump saying, well, after I got convicted, I raised $140 million in fundraising. Really? Prove it. Because the other time when you said you got $50 million and then had to prove it with the FEC, we found out it was all bullshit. But somehow people still believe it. Well, he's getting all this money. Why do you believe it? Last time he told you he got a lot of money, he lied. Isn't it reasonable to think he's probably lying here just to try to offset his convictions? That makes some sense. And that's how you got to look at this stuff. It's a lot of bullshit. And when you stop listening and believing the bullshit, that's when you can win. All right. Next one says, "Hi, Mike. I had to catch up on the podcast. Both the podcast with Ed and the TikTok Live podcast were great. You mentioned the idea of impeachment for Alito and Thomas. As far as I know, it takes 2/3 of the Senate to convict in an impeachment. It would take 67 senators to remove either of them. It's not impossible, just hard with the current divisions between the parties. I also said when we were talking about that, you couldn't do anything like that until after the election, and assuming that Democrats got control of the House and the Senate. You probably didn't hear this too. What you're talking about with the 67 senators is true, unless when the Democrats get power in the House and the Senate, they do away with the filibuster. Then it's a simple majority, and the 67 senators isn't a thing. You only need one vote to get the simple majority. So that's really what needs to happen. We need to win the House and the Senate, and of course, Joe Biden. We need to get rid of the filibuster, and then we can impeach some motherfuckers. That's what we can do. Or we take the shorter route and we stack the court, which is what Joe Biden should ultimately do. The email goes on to say, no one should be surprised that Dirty Diaper Donnie said he didn't care for his voters. He just needed their vote. Yeah, he said the quiet thing out loud, as they say. He said the same thing during the blizzard and sub-zero temperatures during the Iowa caucuses. And a commentator on my TikTok pointed out that he said the same thing during the 2020 with COVID. These dumb fucks can be told to their faces. He doesn't care about them, and they still cheer. Sounds like an abused domestic partner, doesn't it? I've said that before. I think this country is like abused family. There's a certain amount of PTSD for some folks. This is a good example. When I grew up, I had a father who was a narcissist, and he was abusive, more so verbally and emotionally than he was physically, but he had some physical moments. Now, when you go through something like that, one of two things are going to happen to you. You're going to become fearful and scared, curl up in a corner and be shy and never fight back because you're afraid of what might come. Or if you're like me and my brother, we went the opposite way. We said, fuck bullies, we're fighting back. And when we did, we started to win. And now you get the personality you get with me. I've been in that spot where I've been fearful every day, all day, every hour of every day, because I'm a little kid and I got a dad that's crushing my soul and scaring the shit out of me all the time. If you can get through that and keep your mind and your wits about you, you can become very strong. You can become weaker or you can become strong. I chose not to listen to the bullshit from my father. I chose to decide that what he was saying was wrong. And I went forward and I got to a point where I was confident and strong in my own right, in spite of what he tried to do to me. Same thing I'm talking about with what's going on in this country. You got an abused daddy trying to keep you down. If you allow him to keep you down, you're never going to get up. Email ends up by saying, I've heard that they have to pay people to come to his rallies. I wonder if Donnie knows about that. Could his ego handle the blow to know that people cheering for him are only in it for a few bucks? Thanks, Eric. That's Eric from Iowa. He's a frequent guest on the program. He also has an account on TikTok and YouTube. It's Analytical Iowan. ANALYTICALIOWAN. I would suggest you take a look. He does some great stuff. He's a smart guy and he has some great insights. So, Eric, thank you for that. All right. Next one says, Mike, help me out. I'm a little confused here. If the orange turd is getting so much in donations after the guilty verdicts, why is he posting these maniacal rants in order to get his idiotic sheep to send more money? Well, like I said before, just because Donald Trump says it doesn't mean it's so. Chances are it's a lie. 99% of the time, he's lying. Did he get $140 million after he was convicted? Doubt it. Did he get $50 million after Joe got $25 million? No, because he lied. Email goes on and says, I can only come up with two possible explanations. First, God forbid he's lying, or second, he wants them all penniless and mindless so they keep believing the cult mentality. Probably a combination of both. I actually think both are spot on. So my real question is, will there ever come a day when these imbeciles wake up to the truth? I always thought it was inevitable, but now I'm starting to wonder. It doesn't actually matter to me. I'll be comfortable if they never wake up because they're all going to have to crawl back into their little holes once their voice is gone. And I think more than likely that's what's going to happen. Dumb people are dumb people. I don't know that you can do anything to save them or get them to change their minds. Either way, it's going to be nice to be rid of all of them come November. Now, there's the attitude. Keep up the great work. This is where I always go to get my news in an entertaining fashion. All of your guests are great. It's always worth my time to tune in. Philly Paul. Thank you, Philly Paul. Try to call you Philly or Paul or Philly Paul. I'll just call you Philly Paul. All right. Next one says, Hi, Mike. Jay from California. I emailed you a few weeks back about wanting to appear on the show. I'm not in California at the moment, shocker, but studying abroad in Denmark, although I get home in a few weeks. I can use Zoom and all that, so I'd like to be on your show to give a bit of a Gen Z Zoomer perspective on things, particularly the orange blister, this little tapeworm toadies, and other issues in the world. Hope you're willing to let on a new guest who doesn't use TikTok for personal reasons. You don't have to be on TikTok to be on the show. All you have to do is be a listener of the show, and you can be on. And I'll tell you what I've told everybody else. Don't wait for an invite. You're not going to get an invite because I don't know who's available and when. All you do is when you're ready and you want to come on, send me an email at rationalboomer@gmail.com. Tell me you're ready, and we'll work out the details and set up a time. Simple as that. We can even do it sometimes the same day that you email me, if I've got a moment. And to be perfectly honest with you, I've got a lot of guests coming up, so it is a little tight, but I'll always try to fit you in. All right. Now, this one comes from the gentleman I read an email in the first half, UJ Uj or Uj. Not sure how to pronounce it, and I apologize for that. He said he had um, some writings that he had about some of his thoughts. And so he sent me some of those, and I'll read those now. He says, "Hi, Mike. Attached are a draft of 7 slides describing my election concerns. Also, here are a few examples from my journal. Keep up the fight." Okay, this one comes 5/23/24. "I'm sick of hearing about Alito's flags. With all the shit flooding the zone, I'd be surprised if the Trumplefucks would care or even notice if a video surfaced showing Alito squatting out a loaf on the rotunda floor with his stars and bars boxers around his ankles. Thomas is apparently questioning Brown v. Board of Education." Oh my God. Was 4 years enough time? Are we really incapable of fending off this bastardized idiocracy, or have enough people pulled their heads out of their orange lumptard's ass? 5/31/2024. If I were Mershon, you have demonstrated contempt for these proceedings, attacked witnesses, jurors, people's counsel, their families, and my family. Judge Engeron said that your behavior bordered on pathological and that you couldn't control yourself, at which point you had the temerity to talk back to his honor. I agree with Judge Engeron's assessment, but I would add that your inability to accept responsibility for your actions, your lack of any remorse, empathy for those you have harmed, and your unique status as a former and potentially future president put me in a quandary. Over the past few weeks since your verdict was read, you have only increased your attacks and promoted others to do the same. As Judge Luddig stated, your actions pose a clear and present danger to those mentioned and to the country as a whole. For those reasons, I sentence you to 4 years incarceration in Rikers Island, sentence to begin immediately. Be a great fantasy if that's how it works out. And your reasoning isn't off base. Everything you said was true, and that should be taken into consideration. The question is, will it? We'll find out soon enough. July 11th. All right, 6/6/24. I wonder if Marchand will give Terracotta Tiny Turd Thumbs a choice. Pick one. 1 year in Rikers Island. Number 2, pick up trash in the subway for 200 hours community service and have home confinement for 3 years. 34 minutes standing in Times Square at noon on November 5th, 2024, wearing only a diaper and holding a sign that says, "Loser. Regards, Uj." I like any of those options, to be honest with you. I'd rather see him in Rikers Island for 4 years or whatever. That would be a better option. I think he needs to be accountable. I think this country needs him to be accountable. You know, as much as everybody has suggested that, well, if we convict and incarcerate a former president, it'll tear this country apart. I got news for you. The country is already torn apart, and there's going to be more uproar if he isn't held accountable. So something has to be done. He does have to be held accountable. We're tired of the bullshit, and the country does need a chance to heal, but they can't until Donald Trump is accountable. All right. Now, Old Soul was on the program yesterday. She was a little emotional. Maybe I saw it more than you did, but she was emotional about the current situation she's involved in. And she wrote an email. She says, "Hey, Boomer, I was a bit emotionally flustered last night and forgot to remind women and girls to pay attention when walking alone. The assaults are rising in red states, but no matter what state, a few tips can keep them safe. Don't be distracted by their phones when walking alone. Walk to your car with your keys in your hand so that you're not caught off guard while digging in your purse for keys. Also, keys make a good weapon. If anyone notices someone suspicious following a woman or a girl, cough or make a noise. More often than not, if an offender sees there's someone paying attention, they'll leave. That's what cowards do. There's a popular radio host in Texas named Ryan Hamilton. He gave an interview on CBS. If anyone wants to know the perspectives from a husband whose wife needed medical care but was turned away, I suggest watching that interview. He talked about watching his wife go through this, what it is like for him and what it was like being turned away from hospitals. I saw the decision the Supreme Court handed down on mifepristone. Thanks for your video explaining the ruling. People shouldn't be fooled by this. They ruled in a way that keeps the door open to banning mifepristone in the future. This was a political decision. They know Republicans are getting killed on the abortion issue. It's too close to the election. They did this to stop the bleeding. I guarantee you, after the election, they will rehear this case and it will have a different outcome. In addition to that, women and girls assaulted in red states are being denied Plan B pills in the hospital. They have to live the next few months after an assault wondering if they are pregnant or not. So please don't be fooled by this ruling. We still have plenty of work to do. Lastly, I wanted to say I read the comments from the podcast last night and I responded to as many comments as I could. There were several women who left comments talking about their experience leaving abusive relationships. I know it's not an easy thing to talk about and can be triggering. So I want to thank them for their comments. It helps the young woman who's currently staying with me know it's hard now, but it will get better. There's a life on the other side for her and her son. I couldn't respond to all the comments, but I would like to thank all the survivors who left a comment. Thanks for what you do, old soul. I always like talking to Old Soul. She's very compelling, very smart, and very articulate. Always a great show when she's on. Of course, she'll be on next week. All right, there's some news stories that we got yesterday that we need to address. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. We know he's a corrupt, criminal, grifting motherfucker. We know he's taken all kinds of extravagant trips paid for by his billionaire boyfriend. Well, it turns out he's forgotten about three more vacations he got that he didn't report and likely didn't report to the IRS as well. His boyfriend, donor Harlan Crow, according to a new report from the Senate Judiciary Committee, Crow himself provided the information to the Senate. The newly revealed gifts were absent from Thomas's annual financial disclosures last week, in which he admitted to taking two 2019 trips paid for by Crow that Thomas said were inadvertently omitted from his previous disclosure. Inadvertently, I like that word. Not appropriate for this particular situation, but it's a word. The 2019 trips were disclosed after a 2023 ProPublica investigation found that Thomas had accepted trips from the Republican mega donor. The newest details show that Thomas took private jets 3 times between 2017 and 2021. Thomas has taken more than $4 million in gifts in his entire career. I got to tell you, the heat is really starting to turn up on the likes of Alito and Clarence Thomas. If this were a situation where the Democrats had the majority in the House and the Senate, this would be going terribly different for these people. At this point, they've been able to get away with anything. They want to police themselves. But after the election, when the Democrats take control, this is going to be a tough situation for the Supreme Court. Dealing with the Supreme Court is one of the first and most important things that the Democrats have to take care of. I said it before. If we don't have a credible Supreme Court, we're going to be hard pressed to hold on to democracy. So that is a big one. And with all this stuff coming out, it will just culminate and culminate. And when the power is in the hands of the Democrats, watch what happens. They're going to take a different tone because they're going to try to back off from the shit they've been doing and try to be friends to the Democrats. Don't let them fool you. These people have shown who they are. We need to rid ourselves of the likes of Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas and some of the others. Now, the Supreme Court, as Old Soul pointed out, they came up with a surprise decision. This is decision season for the Supreme Court. It's the last month before they go into summer vacation. I don't know what the fuck they're vacationing from, but there's going to be a lot of decision coming down the pike, maybe as many as 30. And one of those will be the immunity case for Donald Trump. That could come later today or in the next couple of weeks. We'll be waiting for that. A lot of people have speculation as to what they're going to say and what they're going to do. Bottom line is nobody, including me, knows exactly what they're going to do yet. All we can do is wait and see what happens. But there was a case, as Old Soul suggested, about essentially banning mifepristone, which is the abortion drug. And I think everybody thought, given the way Roe v. Wade has gone, that they would probably ban it, but they didn't. The Supreme Court unanimously rejected calls to restrict access to mifepristone, one of the two drugs used in medication abortion, in yesterday morning's ruling. The ruling is a win for abortion rights groups who believe the case was brought to the Supreme Court by a politically motivated anti-choice group that had no scientific-based evidence for rolling back access to mifepristone. Now, the ruling in the FDA v. Alliance for a Hippocratic Medicine, written by Justice Brett Kavanaugh, rejected the plaintiff's standing. Justice Clarence Thomas filed a concurring opinion. Several pro-life doctors and associates sued FDA, arguing that FDA's actions violated the Administrative Procedures Act, but the plaintiffs do not prescribe or use mifepristone, and the FDA is not requiring them to do or refrain from doing anything, Kavanaugh wrote. What's important here is what you have to understand is how they decided on this, and this is what Old Soul alluded to. They didn't vote against this on merit. They voted against it on standing, meaning the dumb fucks that brought the case didn't really have a case, much like what Donald Trump experienced during the 60 cases he took to the Supreme Court, or 60 cases he appealed regarding the election. What they basically do is they look at it and say, this has no standing. This isn't even really a case. And that's what happened with the mifepristone situation here. The problem with it is, as Old Soul suggested, because they dismissed it on standing, that means there can be another plaintiff coming up and saying, oh, I've got a different case, and now I'm going to present it. And then we'll go through this whole process again. And depending on where the Supreme Court is and what the situation is in the House, the Senate, and the presidency, they'll make an appropriate decision. But if the Republicans control everything, guarantee you they will restrict access to mifepristone. Now, the good thing about this, if there is going to be another case, it won't come up before the election in November. And once that election happens, there'll be a vastly different situation on the outcome. So it's good news. It's not great news, but for now, we'll take it. All right, as we're getting ready to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast, I wanted to talk about this one situation because I think it's funny. Donald Trump kind of returned to the scene of the crime. He didn't go to Capitol Hill, but he went near Capitol Hill. He was there to talk to Republican sycophants so they could all line up and take their turn kissing the dirty diapered ass of Donald Trump. But he went in there to give a pep talk, but it ended up being quite rambling and quite unhinged. And he said some stupid shit. Lawmakers told HuffPost that Trump didn't bring up the insurrection. Well, of course he didn't. But sources told other outlets that he did mention Taylor Swift, which makes a lot of sense. The missed opportunity for a romantic relationship with former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Representative Steve Scalise being supported by his wife. So Donald Trump is suggesting, well, it didn't quite work out, but there could have been a love connection between Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump. Nancy Pelosi is an intelligent, classy lady. She would not be involved with you at any time in her life. Donnie, you may want to believe that, but it didn't happen. And I think she'll attest to that. Now, the official readout from the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, was that Trump told Republicans they were doing a very good job and they clapped for him. Doing a very good job, are they? All those investigations and all those hearings where nothing has come out of it. You didn't impeach Joe Biden. You couldn't even find a fucking bit of evidence against him. All the things that you've shut down. I mean, let's talk about the things they've shut down. They put the border bill up twice. Republicans shot it down, not the Democrats. They put up, Democrats put up a bill to codify birth control. Republicans shot it down. Now, the Republicans are running around saying, well, we support IVF now, even though at first they were for taking away the rights for IVF. Then they got blowback and they said, no, we like IVF. But the Democrats put a bill up to protect IVF, and guess what? They voted it fucking down. Yeah, they're doing a good job, Donnie, maybe by your standards, because you're a dumb fuck, and you wouldn't know a good job if it fucking slapped you in the face. Now, Republicans have poured resources into their so far unsuccessful effort to impeach President Joe Biden and to investigate the supposed weaponization of the Justice Department against Trump. Yeah, how's that working for you? It's not. Hunter Biden gets convicted and blows your theory all to hell. One thing Trump didn't do much for during his Capitol Hill visit was discuss a governing agenda if he wins the White House and Republicans control Congress next year. Isn't that funny? They have no agenda. They have no platform. All they know is going after the Democrats, owning the libtards. They have no clue what they might do for this country and the people in it. That in itself should be a red flag that for anybody that would even think of voting for him. Now, Mark Mode said, I didn't hear any policy talk as he left the meeting. It was a pep talk. In other words, the former president delivered the same kind of stream of consciousness remarks that he uses at his rallies. Sources told nonprofit news outlet Notice that Trump rambled like a drunk uncle and that he said one of Pelosi's daughters told him that he and Pelosi could have been a couple. Yeah, I don't think so. He said, if things were different, Nancy and I would have been perfect together. No, because you're stupid and Nancy is not. Pelosi's daughter, Christine Pelosi, quickly responded that Trump was lying and unwell, unhinged, and unfit for office. Trump also reportedly spoke about visiting Scalise in the hospital after he'd been severely wounded in the 2017 mass shooting. Steve shows great courage, Trump said, according to CNN's Melanie Zanona. I saw him in the hospital. I can tell you, your wife really loves you, Steve, because some wives wouldn't care, like your wife, Donnie. Your wife can't even show up to court, let alone a hospital room. Now, this is where it went kind of unhinged and Donald Trump fucked up. Because, like I always say, let that motherfucker talk and he will fuck it up. Now, this is behind closed doors. The former president even got a dig in at Milwaukee, the city where next month's Republican National Convention will formally make him the Republican Party's presidential nominee. This is good. Milwaukee, where we are having our convention. No, wait a minute. I got to repeat this. He says Milwaukee, where we are having our convention, is a horrible city. They're having their RNC convention in Milwaukee. Their nominee is saying, yeah, Milwaukee's a horrible city. Now, under normal circumstances, it would have been behind closed doors and nobody would have repeated it. But somebody did leak it out. Somebody on Donald Trump's team or another Republican did send that out in the universe and out to the media. And now everybody in Milwaukee knows that Donald Trump thinks you suck. Good move. I mean, here's a convention that is already having trouble with money. Their sponsors have bailed on them, and they don't really know what they're doing because they've got a nominee who has 34 felony convictions. And you emailers are worried about him somehow pulling this out. Please, motherfucker. And Trump reportedly bragged about chasing his haters out of the party, such as former reps Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger of the 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach Trump for starting the riot at the Capitol in 2021. Only reps David Valadao and Dan Newhouse remain. He didn't mention me at all, Newhouse told HuffPost as he left the meeting. So that was good. In the afternoon, Trump met with Republican senators on the other side of the Capitol. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, previously one of Trump's fiercest critics among elected Republicans, shook Trump's hand and sat beside him during the meeting. It's what you have to understand. They don't care if he's a criminal. They don't care if he's a treasonist. They don't care if he's an insurrectionist. If he's their guy, they're on his side. The world and the country be damned. Senator Josh Hawley said Trump was gracious and did not take any shots at Senate Republicans. There were no barbs, no little asides, Hawley told reporters. It was slightly surreal. Well, it's a good thing Donald Trump didn't get angry, Joshy, because you would have run away like a little bitch like you did on January 6th. All right. We are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.